to Bro Taste This.
Welcome, beautiful people. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Vida y Vino with the Bro Taste This boys. With the group of mischievous, what would you call us? Dumb fucks?
Mavericks.
Mavericks. That's a little nice. That's a little nice. It's a little nice. Joining us today, my improv partner tonight.
Sup, I am Michael Knaak.
Thank you, Michael.
Knaak.
Knaak, indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Knaak with a strong last name over here happens to be one of Philonius' best friends.
That is I.
Am I
Phil
one of your
Golden.
best friends? Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
Well, after that,
Sad life.
I don't even know you at this point after that. Come on, Michael. We're trying to bring some class into this. Well, folks, welcome. This is a very exciting episode. I'd like to introduce you to, as Juan Legend said, the one and only.
Thank you, bud.
Over here, we got Michael Knaak.
Of course.
How do you guys know each other, Phil?
Do you mind if I call you by your high school nickname?
You mean by the nickname that you've been calling me my whole life?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am Mikey. Hello, world. Mikey here.
Mikey the man right here. Mikey the beastly one.
Oh, yeah, the old
Yeah.
Xbox. It's not beastly, though. It was beastie.
Beastly.
Yeah, because
Like,
there's nothing beastly about me.
okay. Not like a bestiality kind of a thing.
Oh, thank you. No.
We don't support
nothing
that
like
here.
bestiality here.
We don't support that here. But, Michael, it's good to have you back on the boots, back in Wisconsin. And to celebrate that, we're going to be drinking one of New Glarus' own Moon Man.
Hey.
The man brought to you on the moon. Cheers, Michael.
Cheers. You know, I've never had one of these.
fellas.
All right, we're going to have to cut that out because that's this week's sponsor. So, yeah, Michael over here is a drug addict, alcoholic. Wait, drug addict is different from alcoholic. Michael is a habitual drinker. He knows everything about New Glarus, right, Michael?
Functional alcoholic.
Functional.
There you go. That's what you were going for.
Trusty alcoholic.
Are you? You said you hadn't drank this one. Have you?
I haven't had this one. I'm a big fan of the spotted cows.
There we go. There we go.
Mhm.
That is their staple, their flagship. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Just spilled on myself.
It's okay. It'll come right out in the wash.
Oh, yeah.
So-
khakis.
Michael.
Yep.
One of the things that I really wanted to get into was your relationship with Phil specifically. How does such well-composed individuals as yourself manage to ride this tornado bull?
Well, let me tell you, it is a wild ride because personality-wise, we are very, very different. Have been ever since high school, right? But he actually gets a lot of credit for breaking me out of my little shell. There's a story that another one of our friends loves to tell where we would in high school you would attend the high school football games because that's what you do, even though your team was going to get creamed every time because
Especially our high school football team.
wasn't good. Not until you got on it. Then
I won't take any of the credit. All credit goes to our wonderful coaches and players that I was part of. So I guess I'll take some of the credit.
But so anyway, I was the guy who would sit in the top left-hand corner with his black jacket, right? If he had a hood, you put the hood up, you'd just be like a little gremlin in the corner.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is 9th grade, 10th grade, just very much a loner kid. And so Phil gets an enormous amount of credit for breaking me out of that shell because we were in the high school musicals together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, you introduced me to another one of my best friends, Cesar, because I wouldn't have hung out with either of you except that you're hilarious, right? And of course, hilarity draws attention, so that's how that happened.
And I got into the musicals, and Caesar got into the musicals the most Phil way possible. I promised him, let's go do what was it, Oliver and Company.
Oliver was your first in high school, yeah.
Would have been my first in high school. We went to the auditions. We Colton and I, who's a good friend of mine. Remember?
Yeah, I remember.
A little CCR, for those who know. He got me into the musicals by saying it's a good after school thing, and a bunch of people just mess around, don't do anything in it.
Well, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
It was
And
fun.
I convinced Caesar to come with me to go do it, and then we. I went there once to meet the dance lady, the choreographer.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were doing professional style choreography at that point.
And brother, she can move like no other. Bro, this lady.
Knowing you, I bet you thought she was really attractive.
Oh my God,
She
I
was though.
She was?
enamored,
All right.
brother.
There we go.
Was she in her 30s at that point though?
Well, I don't give it. She could have been in her 60s, brother. She could have still got it. No, she was definitely like late 20s, early 30s. And I was like, wow, this is pretty lame, besides that girl.
Mm.
You know? So I kind of just quit the musical.
You thought it was lame.
Left Caesar by himself.
I thought you had stuck out with musicals for a minute. You didn't?
No, I redeemed myself
back.
next year. After like Caesar gave me a bunch of shows like, oh, you gonna convince me and sign me up and then leave me to hang?
You are an asshole. For that.
I did.
To be fair.
Cheers. But thanks to me doing the most Phill way possible, got Michael and Caesar a little bit closer. Mm-hmm. Michael and I got more introduced in the choir classes and stuff like that, and the talent show.
Oh, right. The talent show. Yeah. You guys had like your magic acts and stuff like that.
And then you did your comedy act, right?
Yeah. I had a
comedy.
I had a like a stand-up comedian. I forget what the name of the guy who actually wrote it is, but it's
was it Eddie Izzard or some other guy?
No, it was I can't remember, but basically it's a driving instructor, right? And so I was participating in a talent show, and I memorized this skit that he does where it's a one-man, like, it's just a driving instructor that's sort of going through a day with just the worst possible student imaginable, right? Like, she winds up, like, to brake, she's, like, throwing it in reverse. She winds up in the median, right? And
a real car wreck.
Oh, yeah, a real car wreck. Indeed. Yeah, and actually Cesar mentions that as a point that he was like, oh, hey, look at that guy. He could be funny. I was like, yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah. There you
go.
I
think it was like a defense driver instructor or something, or defense driving. Or
So at the end of the day, you guys were theater kids.
In our
I'd
heart.
say so.
Yeah.
Especially by senior year. By senior year, we had a dynamic going on. We had to share a song where Phill, as a mute king, has to teach me about the birds and the bees.
Oh, that's hilarious. Was there like hip thrusting involved, or how did you do that?
No, it was actually way more classy because we had a choreographer help us for a little bit of that, and it was just a father and son thing, kind of telling them about the birds and the bees. So a lot of birds action, a lot of bees action. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there was any hip thrusting.
I don't
think we were that crass.
It's interesting because I was Dauntless, which is like an overgrown man child. Yeah. Like he's a prince, right? And he's like trying to guess what the hell his father is saying, but he has no clue.
No idea.
Right?
For he's mute. And he was mute because some witch or some spell or something.
Something like that, yeah.
I think he became mute after they took him to court for too many seconds. So the whole my whole thing as the character was that I'm a pervert king, King Sextimus. The musical production was called as King. What was it?
Once Upon a Mattress.
Once Upon a Mattress, and it's based on a rendition of like
that's
the Princess
what that
and the
musical's
Pea.
about.
The Princess and the Pea.
Yeah, it's literally the Princess and the Pea, but done in a more entertaining fashion.
Yeah, and I was like the horniest king ever. So like, my whole thing, I think I acted out goosing a lady for one of the songs.
Oh yeah, shit, that's right.
Yeah. Literally, I would like goose ladies, like whoop, like on
pinch
stage. Yeah, pinch their ass because I was the pervert king who could not speak. So like at some point, I had to tell my son about the birds and the bees. Mm-hmm. And I believe in the musical, your wife was like the evil queen.
No, your wife. Your wife is the evil queen, but she wants to get with her son in like an incestuous sort of relationship because she wants the kingdom, which is really weird because that was my actual girlfriend at the time.
It was
played this
funny,
queen.
The dynamic
right?
of the whole thing.
That was hilarious.
Shout out. Pretty funny.
Dude, you always hear the rumor that theater kids are kind of like this incestuous dating circle. Would you say that it lives up to those rumors or not?
I would say it got pretty. They were pretty hyped up after like musical productions to play like games. Like, what if we play Spin the Bottle?
Yeah,
there was always that moment of like, we could kiss for fun.
There was always like the acting one where he was like, if you love me, could you just please smile? That game or whatever. Do you remember this?
Oh no! So the whole premise of the game was to get the other character to break.
Yeah.
Right. And like you would have to say,
"Honey, do you love me?" That's the name.
Mm-hmm. Honey, I do love you, but I just can't smile. And like the other person, eventually got to the point where they was to start like being seductive as possible, like
Indeed,
whisper into your ear, like, honey, if you love me, can you please say I love you? And since like 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, like getting that tingling sensation, brother.
You know, just climbing on top of each other, a bunch of gym rats. Like
You just feel the blood rushing.
there you go.
And that's like we're rural country kids right here, right?
Mm.
Only imagine what those city theater kids are up to. Woo! Jesus, they got public transportation. They got access to drugs. They're probably on blue chews for all we know. I mean, Jesus
I mean, at
Christ.
that age, I don't know if it's necessary.
True. But no, it was pretty fun. That's how Michael and I kind of got accumulated to the theater and drama
Those
club.
circles, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember, when did you and our mutual friend Caesar?
Bless you.
Thank you very much. That's the Moon Man right there, folks. If you want high quality burpage, I recommend the Moon Man from New Glarus. Cheers, everybody. Cheers.
What do you guys think about the beer, though? Like any tasting notes?
Oh, it's a good summer beer. Out of the New Glarus lineup, you had Flat Tire, you have Spotted Cow, you got Moon Man.
They got a squirrel one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fat Squirrel.
Fat squirrel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They
yeah.
always have those really fun names. I like
Mhm.
Moon Man, Fat Squirrel.
Mhm.
Like it's not Two Broke Girls. That's a fucking show. But there's like two sisters, or they have a
Oh yeah, Twin Sisters or something.
they have
like
a
that.
beer also named that.
Mhm.
But I like this one because it's technically an American pale ale. They labeled it No Coast Pale Ale just to a little bit of branding. But I like it because it's like IPA, but not nearly like to that level. Just like. Yeah, it's like an IPA you can drink in the summer that doesn't like punch you in the face with a ton of hops, like that weed
Mhm.
skunk taste that a lot of IPAs have.
It's pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, a
Very,
good
very
summer
pleasant.
drink, like you were
Yeah.
saying, good pleasant summer drink.
Yeah, exactly.
A mature version of that summer shandy.
I wouldn't say that, but I get
You
what
wouldn't-
you're saying.
you wouldn't
I
say that, no?
Summer shandy's a little sweeter, more,
Yeah.
A little sweeter.
Yeah, I'd
yeah,
say so.
a little bit more lemonade-y,
And this is hoppy. There's a little bit more hop to it.
Is that how the girls would talk to you? Is that how they would whisper in your ear?
Honey, you love me to say.
Just like that with those exact words. Because they can't say the normal line because that's not working anymore. So
I gotta say, I'm surprised that they had that musical. That like
the Once Upon a Mattress
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
rural Wisconsin.
Yeah,
right? You'd think the name alone.
Yeah.
Out of all the musicals that for the theme being like a sex horn king and
Yeah, that's what I'm most surprised about. Like the name, I kind of
Once
thought
Upon
like
a Mattress.
I kind
right?
of thought like the name implied like there's a mattress that's like the Aladdin magic carpet. Like you can take that 1,000 different directions, but like you guys breaking down that this is a pervert king. Like how do you spin that to the parents who approve that?
Good question. Good question. I'm sure.
One thing you got to give Clinton credit for is consistency. Because the year after that, they did Shrek the musical. And if you know anything about Lord Farquaad, he's the ultimate simp. He's King Simp.
Fair.
The magic mirror is like, which of these ladies do you want? He's like, I want the red one. I'm going to want the red.
Meanwhile, Shrek's like the ultimate Chad.
Yeah, Shrek's the ultimate.
He's not
Chad.
even trying.
No,
He's
he's
not
out there
even
eating
trying.
onions, cares
Yeah.
about his property,
Never showers.
tending to his fields,
Lives in a swamp.
works 12 hours on some night third shift factory, doesn't clean his toes,
Fights a dragon.
fights the dragons.
Sounds like the life.
Sounds like a blue collar man right there.
God damn it, you got to do it into the mic.
It's for the
You can't
audience.
look away.
It's for the audience.
Yeah, it's to get that feeling that you're in the room with you.
See, there's an untapped market of ASMR. Flatulence.
And everyone knows that market exists within the podcast universe, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They're kitty corner.
Within like comedy podcasts specifically.
The same way that like human trafficking and Hollywood are kind of intertwined. The same way that body flatulence. Am I saying that word wrong? Body
Flatulence,
flatulence.
I think.
What are you saying? What's
Yeah, I'm confused as where you're
You
going.
know what flatulence is? Like burping and farting.
Oh, flatulence.
Am I been saying this wrong?
You said flatulence. It kind of sounds like influence and like flatulence.
That's what we are. We are influencers of the flatulence. We like to burp. We like to fart. Hey, on the Patreon, you get to see us pee and poop.
All right. Maybe you, dog.
Yeah, you go ahead.
You go
right
ahead.
ahead.
Bro. I didn't know you were leaning into scat now.
Listen, bud, I got a career to protect. You do you.
Hey, I'm a flatulor.
Let's shift topics a little bit, Phil. A little bit into like some of Mike's specialties over here. Mike, could you go a little bit into like your schooling expertise, your you were telling us before the pod.
sure.
So where have you been?
For like your old friends that maybe haven't heard about you.
Oh yeah, I guess there's a lot of you. So anyway, I have been. I spent a little bit of time in Madison. I was working a job at the university there, right? Great job, by the way.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the Tommy G. Thompson Center. Did I give you a mug?
What would it?
No, you
would
no,
describe that job a little
Huh?
bit. Just
So the Tommy.
sounds like you had fun.
Yeah, so the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership. It was a fun job. It was really my first job. Right, before that I was a stocker at a grocery store for 6 months, but after that, like this was my first pull up the pants. This is a big boy job sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it, I was like in charge of a lot of different things. Right, I did the finance in the center. It was a small center, 3 people, but the state government had was funding it, right, and they had a budget of around $3 million a year, or no, every 2 years, so it was $1.5 million a year. And so I was in part responsible for managing that, but then I would also have to we'd put on conferences, bring in speaker events.
What age did you land that job?
Huh? I was let's see. So it was right after undergrad, so I would have had to been
24.
Okay,
24-ish. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
About 24. Just fresh out of undergrad.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Mike.
Yeah. So it was really great. It's a great job. And
cheers
now,
to that, guys.
Hell
Right
yeah.
there. That's a cheers right there,
Oh,
guys.
man,
You're managing multi-million-dollar or like a part of that. All right,
Mhm.
that
I
age,
was-
not too bad.
I
not
was
too bad.
kind of so I was
not too bad.
You were brushing
You know,
shoulders
Let
with
me
like
get that dust off your shoulder, dude.
exactly.
So after I did that for a while, it was about 2 years in, and it was kind of, even though the environment, like every new day was like there's new fires to put out or new things to do, it was still kind of getting stale where it's like, okay, for the next year we're going to be repeating the same process again. I decided to go pursue my education again. So I was looking for like a master's degree. And so I applied to 3 schools. I applied to Madison, which was going to be my safety net because I was pretty sure I could get in there. And then I applied for 2 schools out east, Georgetown University and Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, because international affairs was sort of what I thought I wanted to do.
Was that what your undergrad was in as well, or was that something else?
Undergrad was just a sort of a general undergrad, and I studied political science and economics. I stayed an extra semester to make sure that I could dual major in economics. It was not worth my time. I'd had the political science major, and I was like, well, there's not going to be jobs available for this, so let's get the economics major. There will be a lot available for that. No, that's not how it works.
What there's a lot of podcasts. You can get into political majors now.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I wanted to talk about, touch base on. Back when you were in Madison, did you not brush shoulders with what's her face, Laura Bush, or former first ladies or anything like that?
So I met Lynn Cheney.
Oh yeah, the
right.
hot Cheney. I forgot. Yeah.
Wait, the current
No,
senator?
not the current senator. I believe the current senator is her daughter. Lynn
yeah.
Cheney is the
the wife to
The widow.
Dick.
The widow of
yeah
Dick.
yeah. So
Oh, okay.
Who?
would that be the second lady then? Is that right?
I don't know.
No, she's still a first lady, even if the husband's dead. If Bush,
I
mean,
don't
she
think
was
it's
the-
not about the husband being
Yeah,
dead.
it's-
It's about the position. It was
Yeah.
the
Oh.
wife to the vice president.
You're right, because they kind of made a little bit of a hoopla about like Kamala's husband, that he was going to be like the first something.
Or the first, second husband or
Yeah,
something.
there
Real-
you go,
really-
second husband.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you brushed with first, second, former second wives.
Dang, dude. So you're over here like rubbing shoulders with these people, huh?
I mean, rubbing shoulders so much as like, hey,
working with them.
do you want to come speak at our event as the keynote speaker for a bit? Here's your money. Please come speak at our thing.
Yeah.
And then they do.
Has anybody ever made a ridiculous request like, yes, I will go do your event, but only if we're serving this type of chili, or if a certain amount of this donation goes to this charity or foundation, or we can't mention of any Trump talk, or like.
So the second one has happened, right? Where somebody has said, "No, this is part of my job. Keep your money," right? So that happens a surprising amount, right?
Okay.
Especially if you're coming from a like a school, right? A lot of these major speakers have like agents, right? And they've got, essentially it's a speaker agency, like the Washington Speakers Bureau or something like that. And you'll contact them, and then essentially you negotiate with the person in the bureau who acts as a go-between, so you don't actually talk with the speaker themselves. These are the really high-level speakers.
Yeah.
Middle-level, lower-level speakers, a lot of times you just contact them directly.
These are like the Hillary Clintons,
Yeah.
Bill Clintons. I'm sure the Bidens, you know.
Yeah.
My favorites.
Well,
the Hillary
before,
Clintons,
you know.
the Bidens, the Bill Clintons.
Pelosi does a lot of speeches. I just know of like the Clintons because Bernie Sanders famously called her the fuck out. Like,
good.
I just remember that he
That's
was
a name.
He was asked. He just called her out about like why did I believe it was like a certain Wall Street firm that paid
why
her
did J.P. Morgan
like
pay you
millions of dollars
to come speak at them.
to come speak.
Right. And honestly, having been the person who hires a lot of these people, I'm like, holy crap. I hope that someday in the future I can be famous enough that this is my job, right?
Yeah.
Like literally some of the prices are like, you know, what? Instead of hiring this person to speak for an hour, why don't you just hire me to do it for that wage, and I will work the whole year to put together a baller speech for you. Like it's that much.
With deepfake technology, you could be that person.
But
we'll put the camera on you. You could be the former second lady Liz Cheney, or whatever her name is.
Yeah, I'll just pretend. That's that's gonna get me in hot water, I think. But a lot of times, since I was working for the university, a lot of times they cut their rates specifically because it's an education related thing. So you know you'd have to bring that up every time you negotiate with these people.
Yeah. Teacher's discount.
Mm-hmm.
Hell
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Teaching you discount. It's for the kids, everyone. It's for the kids. I'll take 40,000 rather than 60. It's fine.
Is there any like of 2-3 names you can name that you can name that you're open to naming that you like contacted to bring over?
Sure. I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but we had like David Axelrod in. We had Karl Rove. We had
you guys had Karl Rove, huh?
Yeah, we did. He did. Let me. It's been a couple years at this point. I believe.
And which book did Karl Rove write?
He was one of the architects of the Iraq War, right?
Think I know. I forget.
I thought okay.
I went through like a list of person after person.
Yeah.
You think about Ben Powell.
Colin Powell.
Good job. Well done.
Exactly, folks. This is why we get paid the big bucks. And to remind everyone to enjoy New Glarus Moon Man when you can.
There was a famous historian I'm trying to remember the name of. She wrote like a Team of Rivals, which is like a book about like Abraham Lincoln and his group of people that were helping him through the Civil War. Never mind. I'm sorry. I can't put my finger on it.
That's fascinating though. You were like almost like how there's, producers for podcasts that reach out to like the most interesting guests.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're doing that on a much more serious level.
Well,
where
a
little bit more serious level where you guys are like trying to introduce ideas to, like the future like managerial class essentially.
Yeah, that and like usually our like conferences would have like a theme like prison reform in Wisconsin or the future of energy. Let's see. We had one of our topics one year was transportation, right? That one was a bit of a struggle just because people aren't really all that interested in transportation related topics.
Yeah.
I remember we organized a conference and I was really stoked about it at first, right? Because we actually got a reservation at the Harley Davidson Center or Museum, right? Which has a major like you can reserve areas for events. So they've got 2 or 3 different areas that you can reserve for events. So the number I was given for our like target for audience attendance, right, was 300, which seems reasonable. But it was right at the edge where we went from the second most expensive part of the museum to the first most expensive. So I was like, okay, well, if we get more than 300, we got to have the first size. Otherwise, the museum will have a fit. So we got the first place. But then on the day that we actually had the event, right, and we could see it coming because we had like ticket reservations and stuff like that. We had, I think it was like 120 people-ish.
Yeah.
It was a major disappointment. It was funny, though, because as we're getting closer to the date, I could see the numbers of how many attendees we have, like potential attendees. I was like, oh, no, we're in trouble. Yeah. And I was like literally going through, I was online searching out biker gangs of Wisconsin because I was like, who's going to be interested in transportation? Okay, and I was like Loki, like what's the webpage for biker gangs? All right, here's a special invitation for you guys. Please come to our event. And at least one group did.
Hey,
Right.
that's fair.
I felt kind of bad for them because you got a whole bunch of policy wonks that were not talking about like motorcycles or really
Yeah.
anything that they cared about. And one of them actually asked a question relating to like the quality of roads for motorcyclists, and the guy up there just kind of he didn't really address it. He did the politician thing where you kind of like
You give an
pivot.
answer, but it's a non-answer.
Yeah, you just pivot to something else. It was just like, oh,
The roads for the motorcyclists are very important to me, and that's the very first thing we're going to do right when we get in office. Thank you for bringing that up to my attention. Thank you. Next question. Kind of a thing.
no, okay. So anyway, that's kind of my time at the Tommy Thompson Center, right? And if I could just keep going about my
Absolutely,
background.
absolutely.
Yeah. So after that, I was getting a bit bored. Well, not bored because it's exciting, but it was getting a little bit stale. I decided to pursue my education, right? And I applied to a couple of universities, including Johns Hopkins and and Georgetown University, right? Well, I got turned down by Georgetown, which put me into like I was incredibly depressed for like about a week. And I was just like, all right, well, fallback plan. I got accepted in Madison. We're going to be fine. But then Johns Hopkins accepted me. But they accepted me, but I had to pay full rate, right? Which I was fine with until later on, because I attended Johns Hopkins, it's out in DC, right? And there were a couple conversations I had while I was out there with other students where like they mentioned that like, oh, if they don't offer you like student aid to attend, right? That's effectively a no without saying no. Right. And so like that bothered me because I was like, you mean I'm not good? Because it reflects on you. You're like, oh, you mean I wasn't good enough? But now on the other end of it, I'm like, well, if that's the case, I don't really care because now I've got the master's degree from a prestigious university.
You showed that you were good enough.
Yes,
the help of them.
Yes, honestly, like that's what it feels like. Like, hey, you succeeded. And so I did my 2 years there. I studied specifically conflict management, right? And my focus was conflict management in the realm of international relations. So you're studying like mediation, you're studying international bargaining, negotiation sorts of stuff. You're studying conflicts, what causes them, how they can be resolved, managed really. We lower the bar a bit because resolution is very hard, right, for most every conflict.
I mean, we had a civil war ourselves here, and we're the great nation of the United States.
Not quite a civil war, but it's not a friendly environment. As a conflict management person, I'm kind of like, this could be a better situation. But you also get sort of a perspective on like other areas of the world because it's an internationally focused school, so you get like a perspective on like the struggles of other countries around the world, and some of them have like you look at the problems and you're just like, my God, I wish I could help that, and I'm so glad that it's not here, right? Because they just seem like insurmountable problems. But as a conflict management person, congrats, that's going to be my job. So I'm the guy who's going to be like, well, my ideal job is to be the guy who goes into like a negotiation or talks with people who hate each other. Like, think Palestine and Israel, right?
Yeah.
And be like, I'm going to be the guy who bangs his head into the wall over and over again on a seemingly hopeless case until hopefully something changes.
Yeah.
Right.
You guys get this side of the deli, and you guys get this side of the deli on these certain days.
We're selling the deli.
Well, that's what they're arguing about, right? Not enough room in the Gaza Strip for their daily activities, like going to the deli and shit like that.
Oh, the deli.
Like the ham sandwich store.
Yeah.
I cannot argue with that. I guess that's a decent metaphor.
What are they arguing about?
Huh?
They're arguing about the Gaza Strip, right?
Well, they're arguing about Palestine's right to sort of exist as an independent country, right? And specifically how that would work.
They weren't like pork lovers. I thought Israel was like, you guys are going too wild in Delhi.
Yeah,
you guys are eating too much pork over there.
Indeed, that's the origin story. It was just someone who was upset that his ham sandwich was made poorly.
Of the conflict in the Middle East.
If only.
Mike, earlier we had mentioned, and obviously Phil also told me, that one of your specialties was in the country of Ethiopia.
Yeah.
You could just talk a little bit about that?
But naturally, like an Ethiopian.
No,
Okay.
you don't have to do that.
So Anyway, if there's any Ethiopians in the audience, my apologies if I mistell anything, right? But so I studied Ethiopia, specifically the most recent civil war in Ethiopia, because I was doing a master's thesis on God, that's not good. I can't even remember what it did.
Resolution or
No,
something?
no, it was unilateral. It was unilateral ceasefires, right?
Ah.
So a ceasefire, right? Of course, is when two countries say hey, can we stop?
No more,
Can we
please.
peace out?
They
Right?
got the white flag going.
Yeah. It was just like
little treaty. A Magna Carta. Was that a treaty?
Yemen and Saudi Arabia have one right now, right?
yes, yeah. They've got a treaty right now, which is actually
due to end pretty soon, right?
I don't recall when specifically that treaty is due up. Hopefully, if it is going to end, they'll renew it, right? A lot of times you need to do that with a treaty. Like, you can't get a permanent sort of ceasefire, but you can get a ceasefire for like 2 months or whatever, so that we can keep talking about things, explore things, and then it ends. And a lot of times you'll see where it ends, and then like 2 or 3 days later it renews. So it's like one side or the other was just waiting to see, does the other side still have its shit together enough to go back to war again?
Yeah.
Right. And so, okay, they can. All right, we'll fine. We'll talk about it some more.
So when it comes to your specialty, what is the difference between, or what is a unilateral ceasefire versus just a ceasefire?
Right. So a unilateral ceasefire is
Ooh, good question.
It's not something that happens a ton. It's when one side declares the ceasefire and does not necessarily have the expectation. So they declare the ceasefire and say, we are now at peace, we're going to stop fighting, but they don't have a guarantee that the other side is going to do that. Now, it's implied by me saying, I'm not going to fight you anymore. I'm hoping that you will stop fighting me, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily demanding that as part of a deal, right? So it's just something that I can do by myself to declare it.
So it's like maybe if the aggressors can say we're going to have a unilateral ceasefire and the defenders will just chill at home.
Yes, that's usually the scenario where it occurs. It can occur where one side is actually is now on defense and declares a unilateral ceasefire as sort of like oh shit, everything's burning.
Yeah.
Unilateral ceasefire. We're not running away from you. We're desiring peace, which is kind of actually what happens with the first. So Ethiopia sort of happens in 3 stages, right? As far as my paper was concerned, right? The first ceasefire was the government invaded a region in northern Ethiopia called Tigray, right? And it was.
Could you explain which government?
So the Ethiopian government displaced the group that was in power, which this is largely an ethnically based war, right? And I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that because it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
As is everything.
Yeah,
right?
you're surmising certain things.
But broadly speaking, it's an ethnically based war where the Tigrayans had power up until 2019 or something like that, right? And then the party that was swept into office, right, in an election, right, was sort of like systematically weeding out all the vestiges of the Tigrayan power that was still in government, right? You replace your generals, you move career service people around, right? You just sort of
they want the right bureaucrats,
right.
Yeah.
You're just pushing them out, right? Well, the Tigrayans were getting increasingly upset by this, right? And eventually, the northern region of Tigray. So they did 2 things. One, they held an election after the Ethiopian government had formally announced that there was going to be no elections because of COVID, right? They had a specific delay. They said when it was going to be, but this northern region of Tigray had its own local government, right? And the local government defied those orders. The second thing that they did was that they attacked and obtained there was like an Ethiopian armory, in northern Ethiopia in that Tigray region, and they went there and they seized all the weapons.
Damn.
And they armed themselves, right? And so of course, like, they had decided that they were going to fight it out with the government. And hopefully the government doesn't even fight it out; just says, "Okay, whatever, you could do whatever the hell you want, right? The plan is a little bit unclear as to what the long-term plan for the Tigrayans was. But anyway, the Ethiopian government, under a new guy named Ahmed, I believe, right? It's Prime Minister. Yeah, Prime Minister Ahmed, right? Abis. I think it's Abis.
Ahmed Abis. Ahmed Abis.
And all right.
Ahmed, please.
I'm sure he'd approve of your dancing.
Mike, can I have you put the mic just a little bit?
Yeah.
closer?
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Sorry
No
about
worries,
that.
no
Yep.
worries.
Pretend that you're in the failing Ethiopian government, and I have a mellow, please.
Jesus.
9 millimeter.
So anyway, Ahmed, Prime Minister Ahmed won his election, being the pick from the two largest ethnic groups, right? Which consists of, it's a number of political organizations, but basically ethnically aligned. And the two biggest had an alliance that for an election they rallied behind Ahmed, and he kicked out the Tigrayan leadership, right? So Ahmed, he is now faced with Tigray in rebellion, and he decides that we could just put this rebellion down, right? If we just arrest all the Tigrayan leaders, right? We'll just go in, we'll arrest all the leaders, we'll put down this rebellion quickly, and that'll be the end of it, right? So they do that. So the military goes and it invades Tigray, and it has some success. It captures the regional capital, right? It's pushing the rebels around, but these are the same well, that's getting too much into history. But anyway, the rebels are willing to fight a guerrilla war for
a long time.
Yeah. But they actually have a remarkable amount of success, right? And the Ethiopian military, because they had kicked out, because they had been doing this, the government had been doing this ethnic purge of Tigrayans, including in the military. The military was not the quality that it was before, right? And it actually started losing ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, how this relates to unilateral ceasefires, the government was rapidly losing cohesiveness of its forces. It was actually having entire army groups surrender, right? And so it was pulling back, and it declared a unilateral ceasefire, right? To say I forget. It was for the harvest season. That was their excuse. It was like, we're declaring a unilateral ceasefire so that our people could go home and farm, so nobody goes hungry, right? But the real reason is because they were running from the region, right?
Yeah, they were getting their ass whooped.
Right, and so and let me know if I'm narrating too long as far as the history goes, right?
No, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
it's like Game of Thrones, but with Targaryens and
Tigrayans.
What the hell did you call me? Yeah, back to your
Don't listen
story.
to him. Don't listen to him.
So the Tigrayans pushed out, and they invaded. So they recaptured all of Tigray, and they invaded the bordering regions to the south, right? While the government was in retreat, right? And for a bit there, it looked like the government might collapse entirely, right? Like it was afraid. The military wasn't very strong.
Crops were being harvested. Bunch of lazy workers, I bet.
Yeah, as you
morale was down, as you
morale was pretty shattered. But so from there, the Tigrayans. So the government managed to hold a couple of key roadways that connected them to like international trade, right? Because Ethiopia is a landlocked country, right? So all their trade has to go through. There's a couple of pathways, but the main one is one road through Djibouti, right?
Djibouti?
Yes, Djibouti. It's
how big is her booty?
Huh?
A Djibouti.
Does she got Djibouti? Oh no, she doesn't.
No.
Sorry, that's a UN joke. I was in Mali United Nations. That was
literally
the joke.
No,
that was literally the joke there. Like it was a terrible joke.
No, do you think that was culturally inappropriate? What they were doing at the Model UN?
Yes, but also bunch of teenagers / early 20s. Like people are stupid. They did a lot worse at the Model United Nations conferences than.
They did a lot worse.
They did.
Oh, before we get into that, let's talk about Ethiopia.
Okay, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Star Wars, right? You got the Trigonians, the Trihards or whatever, which is like the island of Tatooine, the planet of Tatooine, right? Targaryen.
It wasn't awful, but I'm very lost as far as Tatooine. You could just do the Empire and the Rebels. Like,
Well, that's what they are, but the rebels are, Luke Skywalker is a made of bees.
he's made of bees. So okay, so the rebels in this case are the Ethiopian government then.
Yep.
Okay, not
Good guys.
Not how I was gonna go at it, but like
No.
okay, there's no good guys in this one.
There's not good guys.
Not really.
They're all a bunch of Darth Vaders running around.
Kind of. Yeah.
What are the American relations to this conflict?
So America's relationship with this conflict, first and foremost, we don't. It's not that we don't have a dog in this fight, but our relationship is mostly we want the fighting to end, especially because
Is it because we don't have every time we send a dog into the fight, it keeps getting eaten by the Ethiopians? Is that
wow
what happens
no
to that
but
dog we keep sending into the fight?
that's a hilarious joke, but no. No, so we you have thrown me way off. You're very good at that.
I'm just thinking of dog bones.
Yeah,
at
he's
this
the
moment.
best at that.
Great friends, everyone. Great friends. Anyway,
Mike, I could be wrong about this, but isn't Ethiopia like one of the oldest civilizations on Earth?
yes. So Ethiopia.
Yeah, so maybe fuck off, Phil.
It's part of their tradition to eat dogs. I'm sorry.
Ethiopia also, just as another bit of trivia, Ethiopia it's the only, or it's one of like two countries in Africa that was never actually colonized, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
they
wow.
they have a brief period where they are occupied by the Italians before and during the Second World War, but then after that they haven't actually had to deal with the same colonization issues that the rest of Africa has had to work around.
So that you would say they're pastafarians then?
You son of a bitch.
Yep, you derailed it again. Congrats. I don't know where I'm going anymore.
You son of a bitch.
Anyway, so going back to the Civil War, right? Going back to the Civil War, there was one road that the rebels pushed very hard to take, because if they could take that road, right, they could effectively choke off the supply route of external support for the Ethiopian government, and then they would be able to negotiate with the Ethiopian government and get a resolution. There was some talk that they might march on the capital. It never got super close, but it was a risk if the Ethiopian military had continued collapsing. So two things happened. One, the Ethiopian government successfully held that road, right? And the second thing is that Prime Minister Ahmed actually did the baller move, right, that you don't hear about anymore. And as the leader of his country, went to the front line to like direct in person, right?
Wow.
All right.
And like, I was when that happened, because this is all fairly recent, right? So like I was around for the news when this happened. I was like, oh well, that's the last desperate gasp, right? Like,
yeah.
this is going to be end. But he turns it around, right? The military successfully gets supplied with drones, I believe, from Turkey, right? And it starts. He does a major call up, like a volunteer force call up of like defend your city, right? And they get the volunteers that they need, and they actually get a swell of volunteers from the regions south of Tigray that got invaded by the Tigrayans, because those regions also have their own sort of anyway, they got a lot of volunteers from those regions because this war has been brutal, like full of atrocities on both sides. All right,
as any war is ever going to be,
and that's part of what's informing the U.S. position on Ethiopia right now. Is there was kind of like it was kind of an unlabeled sort of genocide going on there, right? Like it wasn't good. There was definitely human rights offenses occurring,
like against the Tigrayans,
and the Tigrayans against the Ethiopian government. Again, no good people here, right?
Bunch of Dark Vaders.
Yeah, but I guess I was just wondering where
Vaders.
the genocide accusations were coming from and towards who.
It's both sides, right? Like it's the military. It's military forces full of young men being really
reckless.
Really bad. Well, reckless, and you've got the accusation
Evil.
of evil. Yeah, playing out evil, right? You've got your
that.
We saw that going on right now with Russia and the Ukraine. We would hear like fake news from Russia saying like these guys, they started the ceasefire, they started the invasion on us. We're go defend your people. when in reality it was Russia keep pushing into the Ukraine, but they're broadcasting in different. So I'm assuming that same thing would happen with Ethiopia and the Trigarians. They're like, these Ethiopians keep eating your dogs. Tell them to stop. And the Trigarians are like, please stop.
Tigrayans, but yes, I mean, I'm sure each side has its own version of propaganda going on, but a lot of it is very, very real. Like, human rights atrocities and it's kind of been an ongoing thing. So the Ethiopian military rallied and successfully, again, a second. It's not a declared ceasefire, right? But the Tigrayans voluntarily withdrew to their own borders. But no, it was because they're losing again, right? Because the Ethiopian military has rallied, so they withdraw their own borders. Oh shoot! I'm sorry. I lost track.
That's the second.
That's the second effective unilateral ceasefire, right?
The third one is the most common one. Right?
And so in both of these cases, it's been a unilateral ceasefire where the one side is losing, and it's failed both times, right? Because a successful unilateral ceasefire would be, I declare unilateral ceasefire, and you join me anyway. Right, so that's where you find a success with a unilateral ceasefire. Otherwise,
ceasefire was like, we stop fighting, but we're still going to be enemies. We're beefing, but we're good right now.
Well, I mean, then it's a mutual. If both sides, the idea, the goal of a unilateral ceasefire is to get to a mutual ceasefire, right? Like that's the end goal.
Because unilateral means one side agrees versus mutual both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
And, as the person declaring a unilateral ceasefire, you actually run a decent amount of political risk because you're staking your reputation on the other person not continuing to fight when they desperately want to fight you, right? But because you look weak now because you declared a unilateral ceasefire, right? And if the other person attacks you afterward, your own political supporters will be like, well, what the hell are you doing up there? Clearly you don't know what you're doing, and clearly you shouldn't have trusted them. Why are you declaring a ceasefire, right?
Yes.
Right. But so anyway, continuing the narrative in Ethiopia, the government forces push back, right? But this time, Prime Minister Ahmed does something interesting. He stops his forces at the border, which again, this is where the Tigrayans have declared where there's a new border, right? And he just stops his forces there. And they just kind of sit there and stare at each other, right? They don't really declare like a formal ceasefire or anything like that. The next major event happens in March of 2022, I believe. Yeah, it's this year, right? In that now the government tries a unilateral ceasefire, but this time they're coming from much more of a position of strength, right? And they just they declared it to be a humanitarian ceasefire, which was partially caused, at least in part, it's caused by international pressure, right? Because this is where the real genocide sort of discussion comes from, because supplies were being choked off from the Tigrayan regions. Because if you're the Ethiopian government, why would I want supplies going into that
real
region?
Yemen situation?
Right. Like any supplies that go in there are at risk of falling into the hands of the rebels, which means, but really it's just like anything that could potentially support the rebels' position, including food, medicine, right? Like,
okay.
And so that's so his announcing the unilateral ceasefire for humanitarian reasons was reasonably credible, but I mean it's a situation that he himself caused, right?
Easy cop out. He can like, look, guys, you guys are going to have to join me because, you guys are going to starve to death.
Well, anyway, since then, the conflict has not broken out, and the most recent news that I saw is they have tentatively agreed to a more permanent sort of ceasefire, and tentatively they're going to be negotiating with each other for a final resolution of the conflict, overseen by mediators from. It's unclear exactly if they've settled on who's going to be mediating yet. There's the Ethiopian government wants the African Union to be the mediator for the discussion, and the Tigrayans really want Kenya specifically to be the mediator. Now I don't know why that is. I confess I don't know what Kenya's relationship is with the TPLF, which is the group in charge of Tigray.
Do you think perhaps it may have been a misspell on their part and they wanted Kanye?
They wanted Kanye?
Instead of
Kanye can do it. He's got it. I believe in you, Kanye.
He's got all his ducks in a row.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's very sound, reasonable man.
Isn't it just Ye now though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dead named. I'm sorry.
You
don't
should
dead
be
name.
ashamed.
You don't dead name.
Apology accepted.
That's my only bit of popular culture that I happen to know.
Hey, you know the important stuff. You know Kanye is no longer Kanye. He's Ye.
I think it's yay, to be fair.
Yay?
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I would have guessed
Yay.
that wrong.
That brings off the tone.
But so anyway, that's kind of where this conflict is, where there appears to be hope
Yeah.
of it ending. In Ethiopia, the Ethiopian government has an incentive for this to end. They really can't just sit and let the civil war go on forever. Ethiopia's main problem is that it's so a country is often defined by its nationalism. That's what, like, the French are French, right? And they identify as ethnically French, and that's their identity, right? The United States is kind of a weird exception where it's like, hey, we got a whole bunch of different people here, but, first you're a United States citizen sort of thing, and that's supposed to be your identity. And we've been seeing for the last decade or so, like, the limits of that, right? Where you do have conflict, right?
Turmoil.
Turmoil. Like it's hard to hold together a nation when the people don't identify as being of the same people.
Oh, ain't
right?
that the truth, brother?
Right, your identity becomes a major issue. So,
What about, like, Africa has so many countries that are like have 100 ethnic groups.
Right,
You know,
right,
like-
because they decide because it gets really, really complicated.
Like 1,000 languages, like you hear about like those kind of countries in
Like
Africa.
Macau.
I couldn't even begin to tell you, but like, how do they keep it together?
Through a lot of work and a lot of conflict.
A lot of
Honestly,
conflict,
right?
The conflict part, yep.
Like I've heard the same thing thrown at China, like people are
At China,
Yeah, I mean, people are mostly only aware of like the Han, like the Han,
the Han
ethnic
Chinese,
group.
yes.
Meanwhile, like you have dozens of minority groups like within China.
A big minority group being the Uyghurs.
Yeah,
Being Muslim Chinese.
Mhm.
Got
Right, but the
support them.
why it works in China, right?
Yeah.
Is it's the
Communist Party.
to a certain extent, but mostly it's because the minority group has very little power and can't possibly obtain power on its own. Like it just can't, right? So the majority is never threatened, right? Where you get real problems is where there are minority groups that are capable of taking power and controlling power, because then majorities get real paranoid about it, right? And they act to protect themselves, right? Or if they're not in power, eventually they act to take power, right? You see this in Rwanda is a good example, right? A famous example that people are aware of, right?
the Trump presidency.
Yep. Or in Star Wars, Attack of the
honestly,
Jedi.
Yeah.
honestly, right?
Yeah,
right.
I mean-
you've got a numerically minority,
Yeah,
right, that acts to protect itself because it feels threatened,
yeah.
right?
One of our sponsors is Steve Bannon, so we're gonna have to cool it
Oh,
down.
we gotta
on
cool
it
the
down.
Anti-Trump talk, right?
Steve, give me all your money. All right, now
He's
go
not
away.
doing too hot in the Supreme Court at the moment. They took him in for the January 6th committee.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he's gonna get charged for 2 counts
Well,
of something.
He's getting charged by the court of. Oh, right, because he like failed to show up for Congress, right?
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
Yeah.
That's one of them, because like he's like,
Contempt-
I'm not
yeah.
even gonna bother to the committee.
Mhm.
I got a radio show I gotta do.
Which mind you, when Trump officials started with that line, I was like, oh well, that's ridiculous. But then apparently you could just ignore Congress when it requests your presence. Apparently that's a thing you can do if you've got a lawyer. But now it seems to be like, all right, we finally got to the point where like, no, you actually cannot ignore Congress, I guess.
it worked underneath Obama.
I think it's because Democrats are usually like love to play the part of the pussyfoot in the relationship. Like they love to be the spineless jellyfish.
Yep.
They're usually like too like
They don't take
yeah.
the political risks
Yeah.
that a lot of people hope that they would, right?
Exactly.
Especially like the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, right? We came in and we're ready to just accomplish something, and so I identify as a moderate, but within the Democratic Party, right? But even after,
So you were like Reagan.
I wouldn't
Reagan
say
is
Reagan's
not a
a
Democrat.
moderate.
I know, but like
Jimmy
the-
Carter.
I mean, like Pelosi, Schumer, Wall Street, like
Hot.
goons, you know, like
Amy Schumer, hot.
I'm like the
Is
like
that-
Reagan
is that
would
what it takes to
basically
get
be
your
like a
vote? You
Democrat
gotta be
nowadays.
handsy.
AOC's got my vote.
Like you just hear about these stories, like Republican presidents, like Reagan, Nixon, having like these mixed records that you could almost like never imagine to a current
Right, yeah.
Republican. Like Nixon created the EPA.
Mhm.
Like Reagan had amnesty. Can you imagine like Trump doing that? And that's why I said that they were
impossible.
That's
right?
why I said
like
that
it's swung.
Reagan
far right.
and Nixon are like moderate Democrats.
Mhm.
Like
Right. Well, that's polarization.
even though
yeah.
culturally like they wouldn't fit there, they would probably like be turned off by the LGBT this or the like
Mhm.
the Black Lives Matter this. The rest of their policies, like the deregulation of this or
Mhm.
but meanwhile, like they happen to, be pro amnesty or pro EPA.
Out of the three of us, relationship wise, I think I'm more of a Democrat when it comes to like relationship wise. I like to pussyfoot around. I'm spineless. I never speak up for myself. I like to go with the flow. I really don't have a voice for myself. I just let what the other person says.
You just repeat the last thing you heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually a very useful negotiating tactic. Just let you know.
Really?
Repeat the last three words they said or the most important words in their sentence. Right? They will.
Okay.
They are obligated to keep talking to you. Like it's that easy, and then you get more information out of them. And when you're negotiating, that can be very helpful. This is like a very simple like negotiating trick sort of thing.
Write that one down, Phil.
I need to go to John Hopkins. I'm going to be a pickup master with a master's degree.
A pickup master?
Pickup master. You know what a pickup artist is? Brother, there's a couple of fluctuant influencers that I follow that are pickup artists that go around. They're like, hey, mama. Hey, little mama. You know.
They're just guys who catcall girls.
Mm-hmm.
But in a classy way. They go up there like, wow, I can tell by your sign that you're deeply confused at what's happening now. And let me tell you, the stars have aligned for me to give you my number.
Mm-hmm. And so you see what has just happened right now is the trick that I was telling you about, I literally just used it. You were talking about something. You said a pickup artist at one point. I responded with a pickup artist. And now I got all this information out of the both of you, right, about what specifically you view a pickup artist as. Right?
Drop the mic moment right there.
Boom. Tool used.
Damn. You just gaslit me.
Dude, he's
A little bit, yes.
My God.
He's the next Dale Carnegie over here.
I just got gaslit. I need to drink more. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, drinking helps. Ironically, drinking actually helps in negotiations a lot of the time, right?
I can 100% believe that. I bet that's why they're held at all these like fancy bars and steakhouses and shit like that.
Right.
After 3 martinis, somebody else is gonna be
somebody's like more affable, right? Like
a little bit looser.
Yeah, one of my professors was talking about I forget which conflict it was. I think it was the conflict in Bosnia, right? That there were three different main parties to the negotiations, right? And two of the parties got roaring drunk together, right, at the end of a negotiations process, right? It was the middle of the night, and they came to an agreement, right? And they signed the agreement. They were all happy. They were partying about it, but they completely forgot to ask the third party, right? So,
oh, Lord.
So the next morning, they show up, and they're like, a bunch of people with hangovers. They're looking at the deal. They're like, yeah, I guess this is the deal I signed, right? and what do you guys think of Bosnians? What do you guys think? We hate it. Oh shit. Well, that was a waste. But that can happen, right? Where you get agreement.
An agreement that you throw away because
it can be an agreement that you throw away, or maybe it works. Right.
Well, historically speaking, that's how World War II. That's how we got Russia to get Stalin support, right? Didn't Roosevelt and what's his face?
Churchill
went out there and like either Stalin got drunk with Stalin or Stalin came to them, and then Roosevelt like got drunk with Stalin. He's like, look at Churchill, look how fucking fat he is. Doesn't he look funny? He's just ragged on Churchill for the whole time, and then Stalin's like, you're good shit. You're good shit. This is great. I'm gonna join you guys.
He's too bald. I don't like that bald guy over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me and you, Stalin, we the haired boys together.
Historically speaking, Churchill was a sentimental fellow.
Sentimental?
Right? Yeah. Didn't he care about the public opinion and?
I mean,
like an LBJ.
I guess he. I don't think he cared about the.
LBJ didn't
LB
care.
I don't think so.
There's that famous image of like his son-in-law went to the Vietnam because
Did Churchill know who LBJ was?
No.
Are they even alive at the same time?
No, they weren't alive.
Well, I mean,
But
they're
I'm just saying
alive at the same time, but are they important at the same time?
Powerful, robust figures that have a sentimental side to them.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, I mean, I'm Churchill.
I've never heard that. I've actually heard the complete opposite.
Right.
Of
That
Churchill?
Churchill was extremely unpopular, and that like his image was cleaned up and whitewashed a lot by the war. Specifically, extremely unpopular to Indian British people because he
Genocide
like
them.
he
pretty
killed
brutal.
He killed a few million Indians and didn't feed them to save that grain for British soldiers.
I hadn't heard that, but
I believe it's called the Bengal famine.
Oh, lovely. I'll look into that one. It sounds like a la the Ukrainian famine in like the 30s with Stalin almost.
Yeah,
like,
I bet. Yeah. That's and that's similar to why so many Ukrainians have like, or that far right like sentiment kind of runs through not all of Ukraine, but like some of them. Because they had to live, through that Stalinist era, so that kind of developed that reactionary,
right? And
sentiment.
You actually strengthen your own identity in opposition to the oppressor, right? Because like the oppressor always has to be someone who isn't you, because it doesn't make sense for your own people to be oppressing you. So they have to be the other.
Absolutely,
right.
The otherizing, you know.
Yeah, and I think actually with this current invasion of Ukraine, I think part of Russia's mistake here. Was that they took Crimea in 2014, right? And they started the rebellions in the Donbass region, right? If they were going to do this invasion anyway, and hindsight's 2020, but they would have had.
Well, actually, it's 2022 now.
Hindsight 2022. Anyway, they would have been in a better position had they just gone all in right away in 2014, right? Because after the invasion of 2014, things kind of calmed down. The war never really ends for the Ukrainians, right?
Yeah.
But the outrage that this neighbor of theirs would take such a significant action against them really sort of fortified the identity of the Ukrainians as viewing themselves as Ukrainian, as someone apart from the Russians. So, right? So when the Russians when the Russians this year, when they invade Ukraine, they initially expect that it's going to be a walkover, right? Yeah. They send like units way out in front of their front, just assuming that they'll be able to occupy the cities, and that'll be they'll be welcomed, right? The Ukrainians will welcome them with open arms. Well, that doesn't happen because the Ukrainians don't view themselves as Russian, right? So, identity, hey, it's important.
Yeah. Before, I guess we're getting close to like an hour or 10 here, but I want to get like some big point ideas just to communicate to our audience why they should give a fuck, right? Like if you could tell like the average Joe, like 6-pack hanging out at a bar, like why should you give a fuck about this conflict? And I don't mean that like in a condescending way. I genuinely like ask that for those people.
Well, so this conflict and its outcome has the average Joe.
Other than the gas prices going up. For
example, like it could be commodity prices. It could be, the controlling of multinational corporations within the country.
Well, commodity prices, of course, like the average Joe will see that, right? It comes out in your gas prices, which, by the way,
as we are very much telling right now.
I'm pretty sure that I don't know because I haven't. Well, leave it aside. I think the commodity markets went a little bit crazy, right? But the gas prices will be permanently higher at this point because the West and the United States are not going to be importing a significant amount of oil from Russia, and Europe is moving to get rid of their gas aspects, right? Their gas dependency on Russia.
Their petrol.
So permanently, petrol products, right? Petroleum products are going to be permanently higher in the West, right? So that's a reason that will slap the average Joe in the face. Is like, this is my experience, right? But the risk is that you see that you're like, well, why are we supporting the conflict, right? Which is sort of buying into the Russians' narrative that they're pushing, that like the West is supporting this conflict. It would be over if the West would just be gone, which is not inaccurate.
They're not wrong. Yeah,
right. They're not wrong.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, those $50 billion we sent over there, while the rest of Europe sent like 10.
I don't know the exact numbers, but
It
it
was
is a
actually
lot.
80. We sent in 80 billion.
I don't think it's 80 billion.
I
Pretty
know
sure
I
it's
know we
less than
sent
that.
50 to 40, and that the UK, the number 2 donator, was like 5 to 8.
But they're going through their own things. This is had Boris
So
Johnson step down.
I don't want to agree with the Russian propaganda, but that just seems like an accurate description.
Well, even Trump said it when he was at the G1 summit. He's like, how come America's spending so much in green climate, but France ain't doing shit?
Well, it is it's an accurate depiction of things, right? That the Ukraine needs the Western support, right? It needs it to keep doing
I think morally they're like completely in the right. Like
the Ukrainians are the Russians.
Like,
Okay, the Ukrainians, yes.
Yeah. Like for the most part, how can you? For the most part, in most cases, I'm not gonna say this rule applies everywhere, but like you almost always side with the defenders, like they're defending their home country.
Right. Like that's just what you do. And
Yeah.
it's a
Morally, you know.
Well, yeah, it's an American way of looking at it because we're the country of like, hey, we were the rebels once, right?
Yeah.
We glorify we glorify the oh shoot,
The struggle or what?
Yeah, well, the struggle, the smaller dog in the fight.
The underdog.
The underdog. Thank
Yes,
you.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but we glorify the underdog. It's something that's popular in our culture, right? But this particular struggle also has ramifications for how the international world order, which sounds scary, but
I know what
just
you're saying.
just basically how
World
country.
trade.
Yeah,
Well,
Alex Jones talks about this all the time.
Well, it's how
International world order.
it's how countries interact with each other. Like, what are going to be the rules that we follow when countries interact with each other? Now, the structure that we have coming out of the Second World War has been fairly successful in tamping down on wars between countries, right? Which is a significant achievement of its own, right? And as part of my conflict management studies, right, you read in the documents, right, that there's more and more concentration on these intra-state conflicts, so civil war or civil war equivalents, right? Because the interstate conflicts numerically have declined significantly, right? And then it's part of why there was such doubt that Russia would actually pull the trigger and invade Ukraine, right? Because it just didn't seem likely to happen, right?
Yeah.
Wrong.
Well,
Wait,
clearly
though,
wrong.
like to be fair, to play devil's advocate, is that
To play a Russian
characterization?
advocate?
Is that characterization I don't know, all the way fair?
Is it overly rosy?
Yeah,
Probably.
while we're talking about conflicts that aren't between other states, the U.S. carried the Cold War for 40 years.
Sure.
And you could literally say that that's a point that goes against what you just said.
Mhm.
That they were carrying out conflict against other countries.
Right.
Yeah.
The U.S. is fighting communism all around the world,
Yeah.
right? Because
To stop that
it
spear
wants
of
to.
influence.
It's
Yeah.
very scared of those commies, right?
Yeah.
They're coming for you, right? Duck and cover and all that,
Yeah.
right? McCarthyism, yeah.
Yeah.
The Carterism, I thought.
But at the same time, right? The counterexample is Europe, right?
Yeah.
Where
Pax Americana
right.
for the last
and
few
here is a continent that has not had much in the way of peace between neighbors for as long as anyone can remember,
Mhm.
right? And looking back in the immediate history, you're just like, I mean, I guess the Roman Empire would probably be the last time significant parts of Europe were united, right?
But
So-
that was through force.
Well, through force, right? But then you got an international world order that is built of hey, we're going to create structures, right? For this is how countries solve their problems. And they tried that with the League of Nations, right? They tried that with the League of Nations, and that fell apart mostly because the United States was gone and because they decided that in order to do anything, all the countries have to agree on it, right? So
That's very hard.
it's really
It's hard to-
impossible.
yeah.
And the League of Nations also screwed up by hey, Germany, you're not going to be part of the League of Nations. That's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
But you have to listen to our orders. Anyways, it was stupid. So you've got the United Nations that gets set up, right, post World War II. You get the sort of the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, right? You get all these mechanisms that are created to sort of just take conflicts and find ways to de-escalate them, right? And the United States is in a privileged position in the international world order, such as it is, right? Both because our economy was the strongest economy in the world, right? And because of our dominant position in Europe at the end of the Second World War, not military dominant, just influence dominant over the Western powers.
The Marshall
Plan to help literally rebuild Europe, reset the economies. Yeah,
we had the only factories that were working in the majority of
right.
the
Yeah,
industrial world.
When the whole rest, when the
mean,
rest of the industrial world is a bombed out crater, it helps when you're the
Japan
only
and
guy.
Germany were the other industrial powers, and
They got
very much
They
got wiped out.
Yeah.
Right.
Michael, what we like to do at the every guest that we have is to is to give advice on how I can find love in my life. Do I need to do a unilateral ceasefire with the ladies? They say no, and I say yes until they finally say yes, and they join the bigger power.
I think it's the other way around.
That's not how a unilateral ceasefire happens.
No.
Although, if we were going to apply unilateral ceasefire, that would just be like playing hard to get, right?
Yeah, all these ladies are playing hard to get. They keep saying no. I'm like, you'll say yes.
They say they're not interested in you, and you're
like,
supposed to say that
you
you're not interested as well, and back off.
That's what the unilateral ceasefire.
I'm trying. I'm extending a metaphor that doesn't need to be extended, right? Like,
No.
I don't know, Phil. I think you have plenty going for you that you would have a very good time with the ladies, right?
Is it hygiene?
Tell them to fix it.
Would you tell that to a
you should really fix your hygiene.
Is it my hygiene?
I think your hygiene.
Is it
could
my
use some work.
okay?
I think if you picked up
mutton chops, do they say or do I gotta go?
I think if you fix your hygiene, like your personality could go a long way
Yeah,
with a lot of ladies.
Dude, you are charming as heck.
Yeah.
Like,
with the mutton chops on,
and
too?
you're fairly handsome too.
With the
You
mutton
are.
chops?
Even with the mutton chops, sure. I'm not a huge fan of them personally, right?
What's up?
What's up?
But honestly, like,
Hygiene. That's what's holding me back.
I don't know what else is holding you back. Like, I talk with you all the time. I'm like, why aren't the ladies all over this guy?
Why aren't they all over this man?
You could throw cleanliness in there, which is kind of both.
Do you think maybe you just come off as you go too much, right?
Too fast.
Because you're entertaining as heck, right? You're entertaining as heck. You're funny as heck. But I think maybe the problem is that you never actually drop that aspect of your personality, so it never actually fills out. You've got the attraction side of things, right? You just don't have the like, this is relationship material side of things.
You see this hair?
I see that hair.
Do you see?
Again, this is attraction, right?
This is relationship material right here. You can play with this all day and night.
You can be like a cat.
Yeah.
With yarn.
I don't know. Maybe next time you get started, right? You actually have the contact, right? You're speaking with someone. You're talking with someone on Tinder or whichever particular apps
Tinder,
you happen to use.
Transmeet,
5bar,
FetLife. Yeah, you know the ones.
Oh yeah.
Maybe just back off for a bit. Just be like, all right, well, rather than a joke in every single line, why not just say, well, how are you doing today? And that's it. Just leave it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying stuff. I am not an expert. Relationships, no expertise here.
What you're saying is that to engage the conversation is to seem like I'm not interested at all.
That's not what I'm
at
saying
all.
at all, right?
No.
You okay? So you actually do have to be interested, but you have to be like, it's less about you being entertaining, right? Like,
be less of a clown.
Yes, like you're serious and you're boring. You might view it as, I just said something boring. I want to spice it up, so then you'll follow up with a different message. Just don't follow up. Just let it sit.
Just let it sit.
Let it sit.
Okay.
Save the jokes. Keep the powder dry. You know, if I was half as creative as you, I would love to use it all the time, right? I would love to be clever and insightful and make jokes that make people laugh and smile.
But
right?
if that was the case, you would be going for a federal job.
I don't think you need to be.
You'd be doing what I'd be doing right now.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. No.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, you can have a good time.
I'm sure there are hilarious motherfuckers at the NSA or FBI.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's his face?
We will
George
bleep
Bush
that out,
Sr.
by the way. We will also bleep out your name earlier just to be double safe. Do you feel
no,
good with
my
that?
name's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like,
And your name is Big Dick Michael JP.
I am biggest dickus.
Big Dickus?
Big Dick Mike, as they call him in Clinton.
You may be familiar with my father.
Bro, I'm surprised you're not hanging out your shorts right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I came from the interview. That's why I'm sort of set up in like a
There you go.
very formal up top and party.
A general bottom.
Yeah, general bottom. I don't party.
A Boy Scout bottom.
Yeah,
Or
Boy
the
Scouts.
You're a Boy Scout bottom, I'm a power bottom. And folks, and that's how we've solved my love life. Michael, thank you for being a guest on tonight's show.
Hell yeah, Mike. Thank you.
It was a great time. Thanks, guys.
It's always good to kick back with some old friends and family. And with the viewers at home, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, share this to your family, your therapist, or whoever has wronged you in the past.